In early 2007, I owned a PSP for a grand total of like 24 hours. I bought it so I could play Medal of Honor Heroes, and I was so thoroughly disappointed I returned it the next day and bought a Nintendo DS instead. I mean, all my coworkers had the DS anyway, and I was able to join them over lunch for Mario Kart, Metroid Prime, and Call of Duty matches. I mean, that's when we weren't playing Bark at the Moon for the 100th time on Guitar Hero. Now, if I had bought Infected instead of Medal of Honor, I might have kept that PSP, because when I say Infected ticks my boxes, I mean it ticks my boxes. Fast-paced, zombie-killing action, check. Immature, edgy humor of the early 2000s, check. Slipknot, check. Playable Slipknot, check. Short levels and objectives I can complete in a matter of minutes before ADHD makes me bored and I wander off looking for a different dopamine source? Check. Infected released in 2005 and shares a coveted space with Dead Rising and Road to Fiddler's Green. That being, they're all zombie-centric titles that came out before what I consider to be the zombie mainstream explosion of 2008. It took a portability-first mindset of offering short, action-packed stages with arcade trappings that owners could blaze through on a commute or morning constitutional. It did also have online PvP with a kind of player-to-player infection mechanic, but the GameSpy servers are long dead, so I'll be focusing on the single player, as I typically do. So please, pull up your baggiest Hot Topic pants, chillax beneath your Revenge of the Sith poster, and tear open a bag of Butterfinger BBs for this review of Infected on the internet's hottest new website of 2005, YouTube.
I have infected the world!
Playing 2005's Infected for the PSP felt like I was staring into the mirror and seeing myself from 18 years ago. It's a game about shooting zombies while listening to Slipknot, interspersed with cutscenes dripping with post-South Park mid-2000s humor.
Take it away!
Oh, shit.
It's December in New York, and a zombie outbreak is threatening the holiday season. You play as Officer Big Badge Stevens. Well, I named him Big Badge. You can give them any nickname you want, and there's a healthy dose of avatar customization.
Time to hobble up.
Wanna maybe be the guy from Green Day, but as an alien? Or the girl from school that was obsessed with Green Day, who you were too scared to ask out, but as an alien? As with most viral outbreak games, your officer is immune. The twist here is when your blood is injected into the infected, it causes them to explode, but only if you've decimated them with gunfire first. Save for a doctor and the police chief, you're the last of the NYPD that's alive to combat the oncoming hordes. Your progress of clearing the city is conveyed via satirical news broadcasts. If you were like me and enjoyed Adult Swim and MTV's Wonder Shows and back when this came out, these will be right up your alley. I don't know if it was the developer's intent, but these are reminiscent of RoboCop. They satirically comment on all sorts of things, like how the 24/7 news broadcasts normalized the Iraq War, which in turn quickly fed into pop culture and consumerism.
Hey Rob, did you sound smart enough with that last part?
It's only 10 days until Christmas, and the shopping season has kicked into full gear. Adding to the usual challenges of out-of-stock toys is the lethal infection sweeping through the streets, turning people into murderous, flesh-hungry zombies. On the phone with me are 3 shoppers down in Times Square. Tell me, what do you want for Christmas?
Zombies!
Yes, indeed, zombies are at the top of nearly everyone's Christmas shopping list. Some of the most popular merchandise this year includes zombie soap, zombie dolls, zombie video games, zombie chewing gum, zombie...
They're coming for me!
Unlike RoboCop, the commentary doesn't go beyond these broadcasts, and I'm not sure if it was intentional or just the default criticisms you get when spoofing American news broadcasts. Every time you clear a set of missions, you'll hear from the doctor and police chief getting into trouble back at headquarters. While tangentially related to the plot, not that the game has a plot so much as it has a premise for setting up the gameplay, these are more or less comedy skits. I found more than a few genuinely hilarious, while others are a guaranteed spot in hell if you laugh at them.
Let's play funny, not funny.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Not you, Commissioner. Officer Stevens.
This system is incredible. Like you're sitting right next to me.
I am.
Funny!
What are you playing with?
Sleeping gas canister. The boys down in Precinct 4 have been doing tests on the infected.
And?
And it doesn't work.
What's that sound?
Shit. Bit of gas. Give me a minute. Gotta plug it up.
Funny!
We've been breached. He's infected.
Please stop!
Timmy? Timmy! 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 Timmy!
Not funny!
Dan! You bastard! Our school is for people with severe mental...
Not
I was only
funny!
trying to ask you a question!
Really? Boy, is my face red. Folks. This is the war room. On your right is our emergency phone to the White House. Do you know who lives in the White House?
The special hell.
Carrying the not-so-serious early aughts tone forward is the licensed music. There's an album's worth of music from 8 artists totaling 18 tracks plus another 4 instrumental alternatives. It's like one of those MTV Headbangers Ball CDs. Anyone remember those? I still have them ripped to my Xbox. Slipknot is my favorite band in this game, and they received top billing. There are 9 Slipknot signs scattered throughout the city, and each band member can be unlocked by killing a zombie near one of them. Having released in 2005, their masks are modeled after the 2004 album Subliminal Verses. It's bittersweet for me coming back to this, as this was the last album of theirs I ever bought. Their new sound, post-Iowa, never clicked with me, which was a real shame because I took those first 2 albums out of my organizer so many times they're too scuffed to play anymore. Just over half the tracks are provided by Junkie XL and Pimp X, 2 artists I've never heard of and were no doubt the most affordable to license. Some of the Pimp X tracks are labeled as exclusive, however, it appears the artist released them in an album a year after the game's release. The person in charge of licensing at Planet Moon knew what they were doing because there is not a single miss on this soundtrack. Like the zombies on screen, the music is in your face and pressures you to keep the lead flying and your feet moving. While the game's design is much simpler and straightforward from even something like Doom, the heavy music and action put my brain into that same hyper-focused headspace that Doom would. It's visceral music for a visceral experience. The only negative I have is how the song changes with every menu and level load, so it could get annoying having to hear the first 20 seconds of a song when you're in between stages. Or at least it would be a negative if the game didn't give me complete control over which songs play when. I can mute the menu entirely if I want, or just listen to the soundtrack straight from the options menu and drop the PSP into my pocket. Not that I play this off PSP because it hurts like fucking hell, I use my Vita TV. If these bands don't make your soul pogo, then you're shit emoji out of luck, because it doesn't... God. If these bands don't make your soul pogo, then you're shit out of luck, because it doesn't let you listen to music that's on your PSP memory stick. Unless you play via emulation, which you probably should, and I'll explain why in a little bit. Then you can mute the music and listen to whatever the hell you want.
Pretend it's pudding. Just pretend it's pudding. Oh, dude, that's junky to be pudding. Something else. Watching her. He's all checking it out now. She's all about that shit. She is all about it, dude.
Okay, so the writing and music are both very 2005. Does that mean the gameplay is too? Control-wise, yes, but we're talking about a third-person shooter on the PSP, so it was going to have tank controls or use the face buttons like a second analog stick. Infected needed those face buttons, which means tank controls on the analog nub to walk and turn with R1 to lock on and strafe around the target. Yeah, it's awkward, but if you're interested in playing the PSP in 2023 or later, then you're someone who's willing to adjust. My hands turned 40 years old this month and cramped like hell playing on real hardware. This is why I recommend playing in a way that lets you use a modern controller. Aside from wanting to bite you, the infected are constantly hurling puke through the air. That's no exaggeration, the barrage is incessant and you always want to be strafing, even just a little bit back and forth. A few levels in, it ups the pressure with tougher zombie Santas and chainsaw mobs that get in your face and eventually lumbering mutants throwing exploding brains that, when killed, their skeleton comes running after you. What the f is this game? All of this chaos requires liberal use of your 180 quick turn and sprint to create distance and then quick turn to re-engage. And while I promise it really is that simple, it wasn't a rhythm I was able to completely nail down with precision. I struggled with aiming myself just right so that my quick turn left me facing exactly the way I wanted to, and I inevitably fidget a bit before reacquiring my target. Infected is not a game you can relax while playing, so don't play it before bed. The core combat loop is to shoot zombies with your conventional weapons until their outline changes from yellow to red, then erupting them with the shot from your blood gun. Your blood ammo has to recharge, so fire it too often and you'll have to wait for a long reload. You know, it was only when I was writing this script that I realized how metal this all is. Your character has an IV in their arm that is constantly draining their blood into a high-velocity syringe. This has Daniel Radcliffe movie written all over it. When one or more weakened shamblers are close to each other, you'll see this ghostly tether. This means popping one with your blood chains the explosion to the rest and multiplies your score. The tutorial cutscene and opening stage placed a lot of emphasis on getting these combos, and it had me thinking that high scores are what earn the medals you need to complete each stage. As a result, I failed the second level 3 times before I finally took a second to read the briefing, which mentioned I needed to clear the stage in a specific time limit. This is completely antithetical to the combo system, since the objective wants me to dispatch flesh eaters as quickly as possible, which also means I am wasting my time if I'm trying to kite them together into large groups. Your objective changes with each of the 35 missions, but it's always one of or a combination of 3 types: time limit, combo threshold, or rescue civilians. Most stages have at least one rescue people objective. They can be in one group or spread out all over the place and just kind of wander around waiting to be rescued or eaten. It can actually be difficult to see and pick up people, so I found myself navigating solely with the map, which actually screwed me up a bunch of times, and I'm not sure if it actually made it any easier. What rescuing a civilian means can vary from stage to stage, but the vocabulary in the mission is always the same: save civilians. Sometimes you have to defend them until all the rotters are killed. Sometimes you collect people magically and drop them off at a waiting helicopter. Sometimes you can drop off everyone at a single chopper, and sometimes there are multiple choppers that can only hold a finite number of people. And a few times I ran out of choppers while still carrying civilians in my backpack, which blocked me from getting the gold medal. Oftentimes the choppers are always there and you can deposit the flesh bags while fighting, but sometimes you have to clear the entire section of its scripted zombie spawns before the helicopter appears. So yeah, even though I said there's only 3 game modes, there's actually quite a bit of variety to this. If you die, there is a short time penalty as you wait to respawn, but otherwise it's not a big deal. That is, unless you're carrying civilians in your bag of holding. Anyone you're carrying is lost when you die, which adds a ton of much needed tension. Some levels pair this with a time threshold for earning medals, which pushes you to play aggressively and is honestly when the game is at its most fun. You'll have puke and Blaines. David Blaines, you'll have puke and Blaines flying at you. You'll have puke and brains flying at you from all sides, with the hair-raising whine of chainsaws over your shoulder while you have to stand in this tiny drop zone just sweating and hoping you get everyone on that chopper before your health hits 0. I never expected to feel a rush from a PSP game. Earning at least a bronze is required to complete a stage and also rewards money to purchase weapons, upgrades, and power-ups. These are drip-fed throughout the campaign, and I never found myself without enough money to immediately buy what I just unlocked. You start the game with your blood gun and a pistol and unlock a shotgun, MP5, rocket launcher, and BMFG. Because why have a BFG when you can have a BMFG? Was it like bowel movement fucking gun? Every stage is a pistol start. Dispatching ferals fills a weapon meter. The higher the meter, the higher tier of weapon you have access to. Go too long between kills and your weapon downgrades. This is another reason I felt incentivized to kill as quickly as possible versus taking extra time to orchestrate combos. I found myself favoring the MP5 for normal adds and the BMFG for big dudes. I also needed the BMFG for aerial combos, which is required to pass a few later missions. Just make sure there's no civilians nearby when you use it.
Job failed.
Power-ups you purchase have a random chance to drop when scoring a combo. There are 2 types of grenades, a chainsaw, shield, double damage, street cleaner, which I never saw drop after unlocking it, double points, and an auto gun upgrade that instantly fills your weapon meter. The chainsaw is always good clean fun, or I guess good, very messy fun. I have trouble with grenades arcing over my intended target, and explosive weapons have a bad habit of blowing draggers out of combo range from each other. When you pick up the grenade launcher, it sits in your backpack until you switch to it, and it pauses your weapon meter, so I just like to save it for when I had to traverse long stretches of empty map. For a high-octane, high body count game like this, I never felt the shotgun and rocket launcher were as powerful as they needed to be. I think a big part of that is your guns can never kill anything. You can unload your shotgun shells and rockets into draggers all you want, and your PSP battery will die before they do. So I'm sure the shotgun was more powerful at level 4 than it was at level 1, but there wasn't any reaction from the enemies to help me feel that power. They just went from yellow to red in fewer shots. I think hand-waving the game's lore so that your main gun had a blood-infused alternate fire would have gone a long way to upping the power fantasy you get from horde shooters like this. I said horde shooters, not horror shooters. When you put it all together, the constant need to move, shoot, dodge, and plan and execute the next few seconds, all while my favorite music from high school is bouncing between my ears, I get into a hyper-focused state of mind where I'm biting my lips super hard and not even noticing. It completely shuts up that ADHD part of my brain that's telling me to doom scroll or get up and wander into the kitchen for the 20th time this hour. Throw in a ton of early 2000s MTV humor and we're looking at what could end up being my favorite game for the PSP. I say that having played fewer than a dozen PSP games, and I've only beaten this one, so time will tell. The combo missions were the most fun because the others you're ignoring the combo system completely, just to grab people or kill zombies as quickly as you can. And death is only a minor inconvenience since you respawn right away with no lost progress. Whereas there's a risk-reward to the combo system since you're intentionally leaving as many zombies alive as possible and trying to group them together with aggro and explosions. Or you're performing tricks like the aerial combo. When this game is at its highest highs, I can only imagine it's a similar tension that a pro Pac-Man player feels when luring ghosts near a power pellet. I wish they had been able to work more strategy like this into the other mission types. Of course, if the music and or humor don't click for you, then I imagine Infected would turn you away with its repetition. It's 35 minutes of shooting the same 7 enemies on the same 5 levels that all take place in the same looking city environments. And saying 7 enemy types is being generous, and I couldn't tell you which stage is which by looking at the footage. They're all dingy, snow-covered city streets and subways, with the most memorable area being Times Square. Ever since Duke 3D came out, low-detail cities have been some of my favorite environments to explore, but with the constant overwhelming action, there's no opportunities to soak this in. There's probably a bunch of stuff that I'm not noticing, including Easter eggs. Despite the focus Infected required of me, I'd say its first 2/3 were too easy. Largely because I think the devs expected me to slowly fight my way to collecting civilians versus grabbing them all immediately. That is, until the game's back third, where that tactic is essential. I mean, in those later levels, you have got to keep moving and keep shooting, or you will die. I tried something new for this playthrough and had Microsoft Word dictating what I said as I played, and you can see exactly where I ran into trouble. Infected doesn't take itself seriously and encourages you to do the same. It has an identity that permeates every aspect, with its hysterically satirical cutscenes, angst-fueled heavy metal music from a band that wears Halloween masks and throws up on stage, and you explode zombies with a gun that shoots your own blood. It's the identity from 2005 of an American male aged 17 to 24 with gelled hair and an energy drink dependency who drives their early 90s Chevy Corsica that has a failing transmission through their neighborhood blasting nu metal at 7 a.m. during their commute to their Office Depot job.
That was weirdly specific, Rob.
That was a large demographic to shoot for in 2005, but nowadays it's niche and balding with 2 kids. So even though I got a heart-racing thrill from playing Infected, I'm not going to assume everyone will. Some of the Planet Moon devs went on to form Rogue Rocket Games, and they made an Infected game for iOS and Android, but I don't think it's part of the same license. Majesco published the Infected for PSP, and they're still alive and kicking as far as I can tell. They have games on Steam, the latest of which was released in 2021, and that's also when their site was last updated. I mention this to say that while it's possible, I highly doubt we'll ever see a re-release at any point. So much of Infected is a product of the time it was created. Some of the humor is flat out offensive by today's standards and would only result in negative press, even if they put one of those like Warner Brothers content warnings on it. The money needed to renew the music licenses or get new music would probably be too costly when just selling an emulated PSP game whole cloth. I am tempted to say that I'd want Majesco to make a reboot or sequel, but the market for zombie games is a lot more crowded than it was in 2005, so they might as well just do a whole new game. Nostalgia is what initially pulled me into Infected, and while I was surprised to find a frenetic and engaging game, it just wouldn't be the same experience without the attachment from me to everything else surrounding the gameplay. I don't really have nostalgia for 2005 since I spent that year moving from one parent's couch to the other parent's basement. But what I remember fondly are the games I played, music I listened to, and TV shows I watched late at night. Now, as 2023 comes to a close, I realize how hazy my memories of that time have gotten. And as I close my eyes, I Alright, that's going to do it for this review of Infected. To all my returning subscribers, thank you for not unsubbing during my nearly year-long absence. I've made and broken promises before about uploading regularly, so I'm just not going to do that anymore. It's done when it's done. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy everybody. Happy holidays. And if you have a problem with happy holidays, happy shut the fuck up.
A big Merry Christmas from the NYView News team to all our younger viewers. See you at 11. What the fuck was that? Why didn't you tell me we were interrupting a kid show, Howard, you fucking amateur?
This has been an NYView News special report. We now return you to Button Lane, already in progress.
Would someone like to teach me how to audio balance?